Welcome to Wise Owl Stories. The people of the forest came to the wise owl and asked, "Tell us something on friendship." The wise owl thought for a moment and said, "I'll tell you about friendship. I'll tell you about kindness. I'll tell you a story about a boy who made friends with a crocodile." In the quiet embrace of the Godavari river, where the water whispers ancient secrets to the shore, lived a young boy named Shobhan. His world was shaped by the river's rhythms. His father, Ramesh, was a fisherman, his hands bearing the scent of the catch and the strength of the current. His mother, Achyuta, sold bright yellow turmeric in the local market. Her days were painted in the colors of tradition. Shobhan's life, as you can imagine, was simple. It was woven between the silvery scales of the fish and the golden dust of the spices. But the river held more than livelihoods. It held mysteries. While playing on the bank one evening, a glint in the shallow water caught Shobhan's eye. Something shiny, half buried in the sand. It looked like an old, tarnished jewelry. A treasure. His heart leapt with excitement. He waded in, reaching for it. Just as his fingers brushed the metal, the water before him stirred, not with a ripple, but with a slow, monumental rise. A crocodile, as ancient of time, immense, surfaced, its snout resting just beside the coin. Shobhan froze, breath trapped in his chest. This was the creature of the fearful legends. But as he stayed, paralyzed, he did not see fury in its eyes, but a calm, observing intelligence. The crocodile made no move to attack. It simply looked at him and then slowly, deliberately pushed the shiny object closer to the boy's hand. Then it sank back beneath the surface, leaving Shobhan shaking on the shore, the cold metal clutched in his fist. This strange, silent encounter planted a seed in Shobhan's heart. It was not fear that grew, but a burning curiosity. Who was this majestic creature the village called a monster? Days later, emboldened by compassion he couldn't explain, Shobhan took a piece of fish from his father's morning catch. He didn't throw it like a piece of trash. He carefully placed it on a large leaf at the water's edge where the gentle current could carry its scent, near the spot of their first meeting. Then he retreated and watched. For days, nothing. The fish would be taken by smaller creatures, but on one golden afternoon, a ripple disturbed the calm surface. The crocodile emerged, not with a terrifying lunge, but with a slow, deliberate grace. His eyes, like polished amber, found the fish, and then they found Shobhan. He looked at the offering. He took it and sank back into his watery realm. No words were exchanged, but a silent conversation had begun. In his heart, Shobhan had given the crocodile a name, Mughal. This became their ritual, a piece of fish, a moment of shared stillness. Shobhan would talk. He would tell Mughal about his day at school, about helping his mother grind turmeric, about his dream of seeing the ocean one day. He would go on and on and on. He spoke to the crocodile as he spoke to no one else. And Mughal listened. He would rest his great head on the bank, his eyes half closed, as if soothed by the sound of the boy's voice. It was a friendship built just on presence, a testament to the fact that companionship can exist in the space between two souls, even if one is human and the other is a creature of prehistoric instinct. Then came the day that transformed their bond from quiet friendship to an unbreakable loyalty. Shobhan noticed Mughal was listless. He wouldn't lift his head properly. Coming closer than ever, Shobhan looked at Mughal's snout. Wrapped Tightly around his snout, biting into the tough crocodile skin, was a coil of thick plastic wire, the cruel garbage of the human world. It was a trap that no animal could escape alone. Mughal's eyes held a silent plea, a deep suffering. Fear for his friend overrode every other fear. With a heart pounding like a drum, Shobhan waded into the shallows. "Be still, Mughal. Be still, my friend," he whispered, his voice trembling. His small fingers, meant for holding pencils and skipping stones, worked carefully against a tough, cutting plastic. Time stood still. The river held its breath. Mughal, the powerful predator who could snap with terrifying force, remained perfectly motionless, trusting the trembling hands of the boy. After what felt like an eternity, the wire loosened and came free. Shobhan threw it far onto the bank in disgust. Mughal slowly opened his jaws wide, a stretch of relief, and then gently nudged Shobhan's hand with his snout. It was a thank you, a moment of pure, wordless understanding. The boy had healed the beast. Of course, the world outside would not understand. The village only saw danger. Shobhan's parents were terrified. They forbade him from going near the river. They spoke of the magic and madness. But a bond had forged, and it cannot be broken by words. Shobhan found his ways, his secret visits becoming even more precious. And then the river itself turned against the land, after a few months, of course. Monsoon clouds unleashed their fury. The gentle Godavari transformed into a roaring, hungry giant, swallowing huts and fields. In the chaos of evacuation, Shobhan was separated from the villagers. He found himself stranded on the crumbling roof of his own home, the water swirling menacingly below. The villagers were far, help was nowhere, and the hope was fading with the drowning light. As the cold crept into his bones and despair into his heart, Shobhan did something instinctive. He didn't call for the villagers who couldn't hear him. He called for the one soul who understood the river's heart. He whispered and then cried out, "Mughal, please, Mughal, are you there?" For a long moment there was only the roar of the water. Then, cutting through the brown foam, a familiar shape emerged. Not as a monster from the deep, like the villagers called it, but as a welcome sight that Shobhan had ever seen. Mughal, fighting against the powerful current, his eyes fixed on the boy. Without a moment's hesitation, Shobhan slid from the roof into the churning water and climbed onto the broad, scaly back. He held on to the rough ridges, not with fear but with absolute trust of a child holding his father's hand. And together they journeyed, the boy and the crocodile. Mughal swam with a strength and purpose that defied the fury of the flood. He was a living boat, a steadfast ark navigating the wreckage of the broken world. He shielded Shobhan from the floating debris using his own body as a barrier. With every powerful stroke of his tail, he was repaying a debt, not out of animal instinct, but out of a loyalty that had grown in the quiet spaces between them. As Shobhan clung on, he remembered the feel of the plastic wire. He had given Mughal back his freedom, and now Mughal was giving him back his life. When they finally reached a high mound of earth, a place where the water could climb no further, Shobhan slipped off, collapsing into the mud, trembling with cold and relief. He looked back. Mughal waited at the water's edge, his body half submerged, watching. His ancient eyes held a universe of feeling, concern, satisfaction, a deep, abiding connection. This was not a pet returning to its master. This was a friend ensuring the other was safe. Shobhan crawled to the edge and placed his hand on Mughal's great head, right between his eyes. The crocodile closed his eyes, a gesture of profound peace. No words passed between them. None were needed. Their story was written in saved breaths and silent understandings. After a long moment, Muggle turned and disappeared beneath the murky water, leaving only ripples behind. The villagers found Shobhan later, and through his tears, he told them his story. This time they listened. The evidence was in the boy's survival, in the awe that had replaced the fear in his eyes. Years flowed by, just like the river itself. Shobhan grew into a man, but a part of him remained that boy on the bank. He became a guardian of the river, teaching others to see creatures not as threats, but as co-inhabitants of a shared world. And often in the quiet of the evening, he would walk to the water's edge. He would sit on the familiar bank and look out. And often in the distance, on a particular sandbank, warmed by the setting sun, he would see an old familiar shape, a crocodile, basking in the golden light. They would look at each other across the expanse, two old friends, bound by a story that transcended the ordinary, a story that proved that friendship is a natural force and that it can bridge the widest gaps, tame the wildest hearts, and remind us that kindness, once given, returns to us on the tide, sometimes in the most extraordinary of forms. This is the story of a boy and the crocodile who was his brother.